Go back to the last one a second. You see this bridge here that goes over the interstate. There were 4 of those, and we had to go in, and they weren't going to replace the deck, so we had to jack up those bridges 17 inches, and the whole deck all at one time. So you have a series of jacks, and you jack up the bridges and hold them in place, and then you pour concrete spacers underneath the bridge and on top of the piers, and then you let the bridges back down again. Here's the machine, one of the 4 machines that were out there. Here's the concrete pavement before it was broken. All the existing asphalt had been taken off of it, and then you use this, and it's a multiple hammer, kind of like a pile driver, multiple hammer, and it crushes up the stone back to at the bottom of the 8 inches, maybe 6 inches in diameter, and then 4 inches, and then on the top it's going to be kind of like stone that you just see out on a driveway or something. Go ahead. During the process you'll have a lot of slivers, and then they bring another piece of equipment in, and it breaks it up into fairly square type pieces. During the demonstration, the people wanted to see the reinforcing steel. We just leave the reinforcing steel right in it. We don't normally pull it up like this. Let me go on just a second. We'll leave that slide up there. That was erecting the new asphalt plant that we bought for the Casey project. This project was the biggest project that we'd ever done in the history of our company, and probably the biggest project that we'll ever do. It was so big that we bid it joint venture with another contractor. They bought a brand new asphalt plant, and they put it on the east end of the job over by Marshall. We bought one, put it on the west end of the job in the area of Casey, and then we had a third asphalt plant at Greenup, and we ran some mix out of there also. The total quantity of asphalt that we had to get down in the 2-year contract was 550,000 tons of asphalt, 5,500 cubic yards of concrete, 160,000 cubic yards of borrowed dirt, which is dirt that has to be hauled in from another location, 90,000 tons of stone that went on shoulders and other parts of the project, and 200,000 pounds of rebar. As I indicated, we jacked and raised 4 bridge decks, and then we totally rebuilt the one bridge. This was a joint venture between 2 family-owned firms. The other bidder on the project was a huge company, Walsh Construction, out of the Chicagoland area. If you've ever driven down in the city, a lot of times you'll see buildings and the overhead cranes might say Walsh on it. That's the contractor. They have annual revenues in excess of $2 billion. They're family-owned too, but they could squash us like an ant as far as size is concerned. But they're huge. But anyway, that was a huge project. When we estimated it, and we'll go back to estimating in a second, we estimated that in order to get this done, we had to produce 6,000 tons of asphalt a day. Now think about that. A semi holds 21 tons. So we were going to have to produce 6,000 tons a day, and we were going to have to get that material into the plant. So in other words, you had to haul in 6,000 tons of stone or sand or the various components, steel slag. Then you had to mix it and haul it back out again. We had a few days when we were running all 3 plants full blast for 10 to 14 hours that we were producing over 12,000 tons a day. So you think about those quantities of having to get material in and get material out. Trucking became a huge issue. In addition to that, traffic control is a huge issue. You know, you're talking 200 or 300 truckloads a day. How do you control them? How do you make sure that they get back to the asphalt plant on time? How do you make sure they get out to the paving spread on time? Obviously, when we were paving on the west end, the other company was paving on the east end, and then the third plant was paving in another location. So we had 3 separate paving operations going on at one time.
How would the project manager take care of problems when they arise? I mean, problems will arise, and things will not go as smooth as possible. When this big movement.
Well, obviously, it takes good people. That's the obvious. You know, that's the first thing. We set up a whole office down at Casey. We had a project manager. We had support staff in that office. We had project superintendents on each one of these operations. In other words, we'd have a project superintendent on raising the bridges. We'd have another one on rebuilding the bridges. We'd have another project superintendent at each of the paving operations. So, you know, if something happened, obviously it was that superintendent that was the first, I guess, line of defense. We had mechanics on the job full-time, and so you know, they tried to coordinate it, and the project superintendent was the one that you know, if it got beyond, I mean, a project manager, if it got beyond the project superintendent level, then the project manager got involved. In addition to that, we were the controlling contractor on that project. In other words, the state wants one contractor to be held ultimately responsible. We were the contractor in the joint venture. So our support staff in Mattoon, as far as estimators, because you're always running into problems, something always is, you know, they need a unit price for this or something like that. So it was a major project, and we worked, you know, a lot of long hours. On the main line bridges that you saw, we worked 24 hours a day. Once it was so critical, because obviously if you're paving up to the bridge has got to be completed in order for you to get across it. So we worked 24 hours a day on that project, and we're building a lot more projects where we're working around the clock. We just finished a bridge. If any of you go to St. Louis, when you get west of Vandalia, those 2 mainline bridges on Interstate 70 that are completed now, but you kind of had to go like this. That was our project. We worked those 24 hours a day. Project at Effingham we're working on right at the Keller Ramada Inn. They're off ramps. They're redoing all those. We worked those 24 hours a day. Certain phases of it. Certain phases we did not.
Lighting system is 24-hour 7 thing. Lighting system is a project in itself. You do it by your own crew or your company?
No, we to date we've purchased a lot of what are called light plants. They're small contained units about as big as this table that have a diesel motor on them, plus a generator, plus they have then the lights that, you know, are can be elevated and turned in directions. You can rent those things, but again, we normally, if we're going to use them for any length of time, we go ahead and purchase them. So we own a lot of those. As I indicated, this project was major for our company and major for this area. The project had penalties of $30,000 a day, and those penalties went on forever. There were incentives of $40,000 a day, but they would pay you for a maximum of 23 days. So, you know, I mean, in our way of thinking, if you could be penalized forever, why can't you be paid bonuses forever? But they didn't agree with our thinking. And these are all set up in the contract, so when you bid them, you know exactly what's going on. In addition to that, we had to guarantee the project for 5 years, the bridges and the paving. So we did that. We finished it in '03. So we've got certain phases would come up in '07 and '08. So if there's any problems with the roadway, Any problems with the bridges, it's our responsibility to go out there and repair them before the state will accept them sometime in 2008. Equipment is extremely important in our industry. This is, as I said, this is an asphalt plant that we bought brand new that was erected on the site. Go ahead. They are expensive. You have a lot of end loaders and cranes that are necessary that you use on a daily basis. Go ahead. This is the plant when it's basically in its final configuration. We have since taken this plant down and moved it to Effingham. So if you're familiar with Effingham, as you're going on where Interstate 70 and 57 are combined, the very first Effingham exit is at US Route 45. And if you look up in the northwest quadrant, you'll see this asphalt plant sitting there.
These silos will go one piece on the trailer?
Essentially, yes. Obviously this comes down, that's in one piece. This is one piece that comes off. This framework all comes off, and then each of these silos would be a trailer load.